O dragon of the island, who has deprived many tyrants, not just of their kingdoms, but also of their lives. And though you are the last mentioned in my writing, you are the first in evil, exceeding many in power and also in malice. More generous than others in giving, more promiscuous in sinning, strong in arms, but stronger in working thine own soul's destruction.
Maelgwn, why art thou, as if soaked in the wine of the sodomitical grape, foolishly rolling in that black pool of thine offences? Why dost thou wilfully heap, like a mountain, upon thy kingly shoulders such a load of sins? Why dost thou show thyself unto the King of Kings, who has made thee as great in kingdom as he has in stature, higher than almost all the other kings of Britannia, but worse in sin?
Listen and hear patiently the following enumeration of thy deeds. I will not touch any domestic and light offences, if indeed any of them are light, but only those open ones which are spread far and wide in the knowledge of all men.
But warnings truly are not wanting to thee, since thou hast had for thy instructor the most eloquent master of almost all Britannia. If, as I said, thou scorn us who obey these texts, the dark flood of hell shall without a doubt eternally drown thee in that deadly whirlpool, and those terrible streams of fire that shall forever torment and never consume thee, and then shall be the confession of thy pains and sorrow, for thy sins be altogether too late. It's my turn to introduce the episode. I can do whatever the hell I like. I'm in charge now. I'm the big boy. This time, on Mad Dogs Cambria, we're talking about someone called Maelgwn Gwynedd. Someone who I hadn't heard of before, but I think apparently within this realm of Welsh history is pretty famous. But I ran ahead of myself. First of all, who am I? I'm Pat, or Patrick, and who are you?
See you on the camera, you kind of look like a homeless, like sort of like man staring through your window. It's like that time a friend let in a homeless man to someone's garden in second year uni on accident.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. But speaking of letting homeless men into your house, why don't we let your homeless introduction of your name into the house of this podcast? Don't shake your head at me.
No, I don't think we will.
Don't look at me with those baby blues and shake your head.
My eyes are brown.
Who are you?
So it's not having an episode. Is it alright?
I mean, I can...
That's my territory.
I can say it if you like.
Say what?
This is my friend Cam from the YouTube channel Cambrian Chronicles.
My wisdom teeth are coming in currently. I don't know if I told you that. There's one coming in on the bottom, the right side. It's a little bit of a gap. I look like a ruminant. It's like a gap between the teeth and it's pushing through.
Maybe it's not just me that has attention deficit hyperactive disorder. Okay, so as mentioned, Maelgwn Gwynedd. Let's give a little bit of context for where we're going, the type of people we're talking about. So what sort of time period are we dropping into here?
Maelgwn is from the 6th century, which is like the 500s.
Yeah.
Theoretically speaking, at least. There aren't many concrete dates with anybody from this time period.
The day we have an episode where it's just like, yeah, they were from exactly this month and this year, that'd be good.
Yeah.
When we do an episode on like a Welsh character from 2004.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay, so 500s, which is... The time period has come up a couple other times. Like Ananthi was around 400s.
Yeah, like King Arthur we just did, yeah.
Was that 500s or 600s around?
Both, technically.
Yeah. So it's a kind of... The period itself is kind of shrouded in myth a bit, right?
Yeah.
But this guy, as far as we know, is more of a real guy than either Ananthi or King Arthur, right?
Yeah, he's much more concrete. He's referenced a lot as a king. To be honest, for the period, he's actually got a huge amount of writing mentioning him.
Right.
Almost none of it can be reliable, but it exists, which it can't be said for most other people.
Okay, yeah.
In this era.
That is good. And arguably our first historical figure on our history podcast, so that's good. So it's a time period, Britain's still fighting Saxons. Mythically, we've got King Arthur going on, so it's that sort of time period. Early medieval. And most of the story is taking place in and around Gwynedd, right? Which is a kingdom we talked about before.
Yeah, it's a kingdom in the north of Wales. It's a county nowadays.
He's a king of Gwynedd in this time period. And we have writing about him this guy, Gildas. And he's writing about him in a text about a few other kings who he hates, basically, right?
Yeah, 5 kings who he criticizes a lot for being very unchristian and very immoral and very reprehensible.
Okay, yeah. Who is Gildas and why is he writing this?
Oh, he's a monk, a Christian monk, a very Christian monk from somewhere in Britain. I've seen all sorts of claims where he was born, like South Wales, the south of Scotland. I think there's even a source that says he was born in Brittany, although that one's not really considered to be very accurate as far as I'm aware.
Is he
Yeah, he's Brythonic, or he's possibly writing around the area of Cornwall and modern day like Devon, Dumnonia.
Which is interesting because, so in my head in comparison, last episode we talked about the Story Britannicum, which was propaganda piece written later but about this time for the Britons, saying that the Saxons are less good Christians, all that stuff. And then there's another one written by Bede about the Britons saying they're the bad Christians. So it's interesting, this is like friendly fire, right? Like he's talking about other Brythonics.
Yes, I was supposed to say, yes, it's true. He's criticizing Brythonic kings for not being Christian enough. Especially because at the time as well, the Anglo-Saxons weren't Christian. So
right. So that's our little mini episode within an episode on Gildas. But I think we wanted to format this one a little differently. Instead of like the previous one, which made sense for that one, but instead of kind of going through source by source, I think we want to tell the narrative kind of chronologically. And then Cam, if you can like occasionally hop and be like, this person was the person who said this, if it's like super relevant. But so earliest in the story is he's, according to the Story Britannicum, he's supposedly, which is the text we mentioned in the previous one, it's a thing written in the 800s-ish, right?
Yeah.
About this time period. According to that, which dubious again because this is the same document that talks about King Arthur, but it says that his great-great-great-grandfather being King Gwynedd, who starts off driving out, I think they're called the Scotti.
Yeah, in Latin they're called the Scotti. Okay.
This guy drove them out. Then he travels down, in the Britannicum it says he travels down with his 8 sons, travel down to Gwynedd, and then he has a great-great-grandson, Cadwallon. I think you mentioned, when I was going through these little Britannicum notes, you said that Cadwallon basically does the same story again, but in Gwynedd, driving out.
Yeah, Gwynedda's story, they seem to have, because the History Britannicum makes, Gwynedd his Maelgwn's great-great-great-grandfather.
Yeah.
And then in the genealogies, I think it's just great-grandfather.
Oh, okay.
There seems to have been strange additions there. And
big difference as well.
Yeah, Maelgwn's father, Cadwallon Lau here, is credited in the Triads as fighting the Irish on Anglesey and like conquering Ynys Môn. And then here, Gwynedd seems to have been given that story, like how they give all those historical battles to Arthur also. It's sort of a running theme in the History of Britannia.
Oh, I see. Okay, so Cadwallon drives the Irish out of Gwynedd. Oh no, out of Anglesey.
Yeah, well that's not in the History of Britannia, that's in the Triads.
And then he has a son, Maelgwn, which is where our story begins. So, what's the earliest we have in this guy's life? Like, do we know much about him being young?
No, not at all. The earliest mention we have, like chronologically, is Gildas saying at his young age he killed his mother's brother with sword and spear and fire.
God damn, that's overkill. You only need one of those to kill someone.
Also, like the Latin has a word for mother, for like uncle on the mother's side. That's a fun one.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't remember what the word is, but that's the one he uses.
We'll flash it up on the screen now if you're watching the YouTube version. So literally the first bit of knowledge we have about this guy is him killing his mother's brother and his army with swords and spears and fire. Is he king at this point, Maelgwn?
No, his mother's brother is king, apparently.
Or is he like a prince?
I guess he would have been in like the royal family, theoretically. But that doesn't mean a whole lot.
So, I don't know if you can answer much on this detail, but like, his father was the king, right? Cadwallon.
Yeah, if the genealogies like attributed to him are correct, because they could also just be attaching it to a famous name.
Yeah.
So theoretically,
Do we know when Cadwachon dies? Like, why is it that Cadwachon isn't the king?
I would assume that if the line is as they say it is, he probably died, and then his mother's brother, which would have been his wife's brother even,
Took over.
would have taken the throne. Maelgwn might have been too young. He supposedly was in the prime of his like youth or whatever Gildas says when he attacks him. And the similar situations theoretically happened later in Gwynedd.
Oh, okay. So that happens, and then is that when he becomes king?
I guess, yes, according to Gildas at least, that's when it all happens.
So what's next in Maelgwn's life? He's just killed his uncle. So that's step one of his, like... I feel like one of those Instagram pages where it's like, these are the 5 things they won't tell you that you need for content success. Step 1, kill your uncle. Make sure it's your mother's one.
Reminds me of one of those memes like you have to listen to your ancestor, your guardian, like something like you're asking your ancestor for advice, but if your ancestor's Maelgwn, it's like, hey, have you tried killing them?
Okay, so he becomes king. You've written a note here, Maelgwn Rex Cambria.
Oh yeah,
is that just King of Cambria?
Yeah, that's a line from one of the saints' lives.
Okay, what are the saints' lives, real quick?
Oh, my laptop's dying.
That doesn't sound like what the saints' lives are.
In the 10th and 11th centuries, and I think up to the 13th centuries, actually, some of them, the lives of these sort of big saints that were part of Christian religion were recorded. But yeah, they basically serve to big up the saints and say how cool they are.
Yeah.
And Maelgwn's mentioned in quite a few of them as like a big evil tyrant that they can out-Christian him and save the day.
In these saints' lives, what do they say about him, other than just being generally not a nice guy?
Do you want to go for it? I just did a big yap. I think you can go for it if you like. I think they're written down in the notes.
Oh, sure. Ooh, I'm excited. That makes me sound like smart. So we got Maelgwn Rex Cambria. He accosted Saint Brynach for food. He accosted him for food and resolved to destroy his property once refused. Stole and tried to cook Brynach's cow, but the water would not boil. Perceiving God's power, they asked for forgiveness and granted Brynach, a quote from your notes, lots of land and stuff, etc.
It's how it all goes. The reason I put blah blah, etc., and as you'll see in the next Saint life, is because they basically all go like that. Maelgwn's like, oh, I'm evil, I'm not Christian, give me all your stuff. And Brynach's like, no, I'm good and I'm Christian, I won't give you stuff. And he's like, I'm gonna kill you with knives. And he's like, nah, casts blindness on you. Maelgwn gets blinded at, I think, 3 separate times.
Jesus Christ.
So, blinds you. And
Literally,
he's like, oh, I'm so sorry, you are the best saint. Quote from me, you're the best saint. I'm going to give you all of this land, all of this treasure, all of these things, my protection. You don't have to pay tax anymore. And all this... And that's
blind me once, fool on you. Blind me twice, fool on me. Blind me 3 times. I cannot cook this cow.
As you've seen for the way the text, you said it earlier, like, it's not listed like that. It's like, and then Maelgwn, King of Wales, that he was ruler of in the north of Wales, gave land to Brynach, that saint, who lived on this hill. That is the hill of Brynach, located in North Ceredigion. It's like, oh my god, get to the point. Hurry up. I mean, I don't have
this is the quote-unquote Dark Ages. I guess they didn't have much to read. They needed to pad it out. It's like a filler episode.
It's like at an aneurysm every time people are like, oh no, they never wrote anything down at this time. It's like, oh, I wish.
They wrote too much.
I wish. You want to hear about everything Brynach had to say?
I do love that. This is the best tangent, but I don't care. It reminds me of like ancient art, that thing of... part of the reason it's so beautiful and impressive is because of the time it was made. But like, if you wrote something with this like sentence structure today, your editor would be like, "What the hell is wrong with you? Have you read a book ever?"
I like it. Something really pure about it.
Yeah, it's wholesome. Okay, so I have a couple of questions about this story. The first one being, so he's a king. Why would he? Yeah, he's literally the king of all of Cambria. Why would he accost a single monk for march up with an entire army and go, bro, I'm hungry?
I don't remember if in the story he's in a hunting party or not.
Oh, okay.
He might have been gone hunting, but yeah, I do get what you mean. But that's also, to be fair, with Maelgwn, I'm surprised he didn't just like kill him straight instantly the second he saw him.
Yeah, that's true.
Which we'll get to that.
Okay, yeah. So that adds a little more context. The kind of hunting party. He just steals and tries to cook his cow, but the water would not boil. I will say, low-key, a little bit laissez-faire of God here, considering he does the miracle of saying, well, look at you, man, you can't even cook this. But he does let him kill and like skin and like turn it into meat to cook first.
Wow, read on. Did I put that part in my notes? I really hope so. Read on.
Perceiving God's... Yeah, they asked for forgiveness and granted Brecon loads of land.
Did I not add it in? The cow comes back to life.
How did you... No, you didn't. How did you...
Sorry. Yeah, the cow gets brought back to life.
Oh, okay.
That's like the miracle. Sorry, I missed out the only important part of the text.
Okay, yeah, my bad.
It's like Lazarus, but with a cow.
That's fire. Okay, so they're like, oh, we're so sorry. We promise. Last time I'm gonna be evil and steal a cow. I promise.
Pretty
I promise.
Much, yeah. But in about 1,000 words.
So that happens. So far we've had he murders his uncle. Well, that just happened.
Let's think r/that happened. He goes
r/AITA.
Am I the just trying to kill this guy's cow?
Maelgwn.
He started praying to God, and I saw the cow become reconstituted and come back to life.
NTA. Here's a Reddit gold. Okay, Maelgwn definitely would have been a Redditor, right?
Maelgwn would have been in prison.
So next up, our next little event, Maelgwn, out this time he's king of the Northern Britons, came to North Ceredigion with an army. Tried to trick local Saint Padarn. I was going to read Padam like the song. So he used God's power to blind Maelgwn.
There it goes.
Same thing, asked for forgiveness, got land, blah blah. These are all the same.
Can you tell I've been writing this for like 6 hours at this point.
I loved it. It was brilliant to read.
Yeah, Maelgwn rocks up. He sends 2 like people, villains.
Okay.
He sends 2 people to go up and they go like, oh, I know what to... I don't know why he wants to trick him. They just do. They collect a bunch of rocks and moss and dirt and put it in a big sack and like, here, look after my gems and treasures.
This guy had nothing to do.
He had nothing better to do. Apparently nothing. He sent an army to invade Ceredigion to take control, and he's like, hang on a minute. Is there a nearby saint I can give a bag of rocks and be like, look after my There is? Oh, perfect. Go do that. And then it's like, they're like, oh, but if we come back and it's been replaced with dirt and moss and rocks and stuff, it's going to be real angry. And then they come back and it's like, what is dirt and rocks and moss in here? What are you playing at? And Padan's like, well, if I'm a liar, I'll stick my hand in this boiling water and it will hurt. And he sticks his hand in boiling water and does...
And it will hurt.
Yeah, if he's a liar. And it does nothing. He's immune. And he's like, well, now it's your guys' turn, because obviously you guys haven't lied. And they're like, oh yeah, sure, we'll stick it in there. Like, it boils their hands because they're liars. And then he blinds Maelgwn, and then he's like, oh my god, I'm sorry for tricking you during my invasion. Please have all of this stuff again in like 100 words, 1,000 words. Sorry, I'm a bit nonchalant. I read it so many times, so long.
Another thing I find funny about it as well is that this is the big example of sin written down. Like, presumably in the historiosity of this, he's marched his army into like a different kingdom. They're probably slaughtering, stealing wives from husbands, killing children. God doesn't give a damn about any of that, but he gives this guy some rocks.
You trying to give my guy Padan rocks and moss?
Whoa.
Oh, man.
No more Mr. Nice Guy.
It's one of my favorite ones, I think. It's such a funny...
It's really good.
It's so absurd.
As well, because... Okay, so as usual, I have the question of this. Do we know, is this a story that's invented for this text, or is this like a story passed down orally that's...
Yeah,
do we know that?
To be fair, there's a few I think St. Cadog is the oldest one, and from what I've read, seems to have much more people saying that it could be much older. But all of them theoretically will have elements that have been passed down about the saints' lives. They almost certainly haven't just like... Because these are like... They had like cults around them, and they probably would have had manuscripts about their lives passed down, so... At some point along the line, there probably could have been a story of Maelgwn invading Ceredigion and involved with Saint Padan, but did he fill a bag with moss and rocks and try to trick him? Probably not.
I mean, because I was going to say, I feel like that lends it to being some kind of myth passed, at least to me. I just think, if you're going to invent a story for your I feel like you'd go a little harder
Yes.
to say that he's evil.
But the Maelgwn point could be fairly reliable inclusion because he's not just in like everything. He's in quite a few Saints' lives, but he's not just like a guy you throw, like what Arthur became. You don't just throw him in any way you like.
Assign him to anywhere.
Yeah, so
okay. It's consistent.
Yeah, it could be fairly reliable that he was involved at some point, but we don't really know how. Probably wasn't with a bad do it.
So far his list. Murdered uncle and his entire army to become king. Then after that, he's like, okay, I'm gonna just go back to some fun ones for a little while instead of murdering. I'm gonna steal a cow, I'm gonna give a guy some rocks.
So before St. Cadog, the last saint, there's the life of St. Cubby. It's pretty short. He just like goes around places. He goes to Ireland, he leaves Ireland. And when he comes to Wales, he meets Maelgwn, and something funky happens as well. Give me a second, I've got it up here. He protects a female goat.
Okay. The saint does.
Yeah. Maelgwn's trying to hunt this goat, and he's like, oh, I'll protect the goat. If I let it go and it comes back, then I win. He's like, oh, yeah, sure. And it does, so he wins. It's not a bit of a niche one.
Owned.
So in exchange,
also,
what is really interesting though is
why is he always hunting farm animals?
I don't know. But the interesting thing is it does have a real interesting piece of history to it.
Okay.
Is that in exchange, Maelgwn gives St. Cubby a castle.
Yes.
Which we know today was an old Roman fort in called Caergubby in Welsh. It's called Holyhead in English. Trying to remember the place with the port.
Oh, no way.
You could take the ferry to Ireland there. And the walls of the Roman fort are still there with a church inside.
Oh, that's so cool.
The church is newer, but the walls are there.
Yeah.
And also,
that's really
tied
cool.
into Maelgwn again, that's the place that his father defeated the Irish king. Supposedly, that's the same location.
Oh, wow. So our last saint, so this is when the story kind of continues from his little side quests of getting blinded over and over
twice in this saint's life. And his son also gets blinded.
God damn. You think as well that God and his saints would try and come up with another trick, because clearly this is not kicking any sense into it.
I mean, to be fair, this one it does work temporarily at least.
Okay, so finally he tried to attack South Wales. Same deal, got blinded or covered in fog, repented to St. Cadog, who then became his confessor. So, blinded or covered in fog was the...
In the life of St. Cadog, there are two nearly identical stories.
Okay.
From what I've read, they don't seem to be like, oh, just like I mentioned earlier, it's like, oh, this is another story. Both times Maelgwn tries to invade Gwynedd, tries to like collect tax and like tributes. They carry off some guy's daughter. That guy's like, okay, let's get an army, let's get it back. And they defeat Maelgwn's army, they get it back in revenge for what Maelgwn started. So I don't know if that counts as revenge. He leads a new army back and camps at this place called Ffynnon Brytai, I think.
Okay.
It's the same place in both stories. And then the first story, they're like, oh my god, St. Cadog, Maelgwn's here. I know you guys really like sort of calling on God to like just mess him up. Can you do that again? He's like, yeah, sure, no worries. So he summons down this huge like cloud of fog and covers everywhere in fog, and he shows up to him in like a beam of light. It's like, hey, you shouldn't do this anymore. And he's like, oh my god. Literally, I didn't know this was possible. Yeah. Last time it happened, he did, just like a goat like lived forever. I didn't know you could do this. I think you should become my confessor. So he like confesses his sins to him, and he's like, yeah, sure, that sounds good. In the other story, exactly the same thing, just he gets blinded. He's like, oh my god, I did know you could do this actually, but and honestly, second time around, I can't really be bothered with this anymore. Why don't you just become my confessor?
I did.
I mean, he did. It happened with
actually,
Saint Padon,
I did know you could do it, so...
Was it Saint Padon? Saint Brynach who blinds him. Okay, this happened last time. Are you going to bring a cow back to life?
No, it's Padon. It is Padon. I've just looked up.
Oh, nice. So yeah, he's same deal. He's like, oh yeah, sure. And then obviously he's blah, blah, blah. Gives him the land, gives him the stuff, gives him the things. His son tries to invade Gwynedd, and he's like, hey, if you see St. Cadog or any of his people out there, you don't be doing anything to them. And he's like, all right, sure. And then he does, and he gets blinded in return because, to be fair, his dad should have warned him about that.
Yeah. So, imagine as well, he's confessing to this guy. This king is talking to him. The order of his crimes is him going, so I murdered my uncle. And Cadog's like, okay, I understand, my son. I forgive you. And then he's like, I stole a cow. I was like, whoa, 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 whoa.
You're getting blinded. No, not again.
No, please. You're getting the fog.
Hey. Call in the fog.
Fog this guy.
Computer, fog this man.
Jarvis. Fog Maelgwn Gwynedd.
Oh my god, he's calling on his saintly powers. Is he going to provide food first? Is he going to provide shelter first? God. Fog this man.
Fog this man. What about his hundreds of soldiers? They're literally killing us, please.
Fog this man and provide me with a beam of light.
Okay. So, as his confessor... Okay, so the next part in the notes is a continuation of this. As his confessor, might have been the quote-unquote great teacher who converted Maelgwn to Jesus Christ superstar, vowed himself to God, and gave up vices like money, moolah, and power.
Yep.
Okay. So, a couple of things. First thing being... You've written, as his confessor might have been the quote-unquote great teacher. Who's the great teacher?
Gildas mentions that he had like a great teacher. I'm not sure if it was in the opening quote. It was like only a sentence away if it wasn't.
Oh.
He's saying like, oh, these sins aren't a secret to you because you had this great teacher who told you all these things.
Oh, I see. Okay, I got it. So like, if he can convince you, then no way I can.
Yeah.
Me of the gilded ass. That's interesting, actually, because let me hop over to the Gildas thing. Yeah, but warnings truly are not wanting to thee, since thou hast had for thy instructor the most eloquent master of almost all Britannia. I thought I'd seen somewhere. You'll have to fill in the explanation for this.
If I can.
But when I was doing research all over the place, I saw some stuff saying that it's implied somewhere in this, possibly from that part, it might have been from somewhere else, that Gildas is saying that there's like another over-king. He mentions his like 5 kings, and he also implies, but doesn't mention by name, some even greater over-king who is even stronger and even more evil, possibly.
Yeah, that was towards the very start of his thing.
Yeah.
He says, like, although not greatest in power. And that's from the Enheim notes that I sent you. The ones that are even more incoherent than this one.
Right.
Well, he has the idea that it was because it's an older source, it's from the 90s, but I haven't seen anyone more modern write about this.
Sorry, just to clarify, that's different. Yeah, I think when I first read that, because I wasn't taking it in fully, I read the part where he's like, warnings don't matter because there's someone even stronger than you. I'd interpreted that as that was who that was talking about, but that's very clearly, he is talking about his teacher, the confessor there. Yeah. He's not talking about the other king. Okay.
No, but he is earlier on.
Yes, okay. But yes, sorry, continue about this over king.
Well, Enheim had the idea back in the 90s that because Gildas mentions that Maelgwn isn't the most powerful, and he says that if there was another Welsh king that was the most powerful, he probably would have mentioned him. Like, what reason would he have to not mention him?
Right, yeah.
He figured that there's probably an Anglo-Saxon king. This is in a paper to try and show the concept of sort of Anglo-Saxon, like, over-kings.
Yeah.
So there probably was one in England, and there's a record very early on of an Anglo-Saxon kingdom sending soldiers back to Germany to intervene in something, and that's what he figured. That's this sort of hypothetical over-king that he's thinking of.
But yes, okay, so Maelgwn, after he's killed his uncle, he's stolen and hunted like farm animals, he's given some guy dirt and rocks, and now he got the fog and he's converted. But I feel like, if this were like a little mystery, if this were a little Agatha Christie mystery, and you were following it, you'd be like, based on the evidence so far, it doesn't seem likely that he's going to stick to it. And you would perchance, perchance if the chance is 100%, be correct. Because after our little break, which is coming up, we will be finding out what he does next. And big surprise, the rest of the podcast isn't us going, yeah, and then he was good, and he was a monk for the next half hour. But, hint, he, you've written in the notes that he was, and I'll have to censor this, but you've written in the notes that he was a man. I guess the uncensored version would be
promiscuous.
Cad. He was a cad.
Is a what?
Cad is like an old-timey... Like, you cad.
Never heard that in my life.
Anyway, we'll see you after our little break. Alright, welcome back. So, as we teased before the little break, because that's what we are, we're both little teasers, we hinted at the fact that Maelgwn, who has converted to our Lord and Savior, as you put in the chat, Jesus Christ Superstar, in the chat? in the notes, in the Mad Dogs Discord. Maybe we should set that up at some point. Anyway, as we hinted, he was going to do it. So, the next sentence you put in the notes, so he said, vowed himself to God and gave advice like money, moolah, and power, but then couldn't give up the ladies, brackets, and possibly men too, though. That man so decided to demonk himself and kill lots of people. Okay, so does this bit come from Gildas?
Yes.
Okay.
That's his, like, first thing after saying he's like, oh, he became a monk and then he became not a monk. That's like his second, like, round of criticism.
Where is it? A monk with no intention to be unfaithful, as thou did say, having burst through those toils in which such great beasts as thyself were used to becoming entangled, whether it were love of rule or of gold or of silver. Oh, of gold or silver, that was your money or moolah.
Yeah.
Or, what is stronger still, the fancies of thy own heart. And did thou not, like a dove escaping the furious hawk, safely return... Blah, blah, blah. Alright, Gildas.
I cut out like 4 paragraphs of biblical metaphors there.
How great joy it should have been to our mother church, mothering, if the enemy of all mankind had not lamentably pulled thee, as it were, out of her bosom. Okay, Gildas. And then, yeah, he says that Maelgwn returns like a dog to vomit to doing evil, basically. I love like a dog to vomit, because I've never heard that before, or well, obviously I've never heard it before.
I don't know what dog's skill as a scene.
Yeah. But yeah, okay, so basically he can't help himself and he goes back. His whole thing for the ladies... So you say brackets and the men too?
Yes, that is an interesting little...
This is a whole interesting section. Him being a bi queen and also Gildas being closeted.
Yeah, I guess it is up to debate, but I am personally a supporter of the idea that Gildas criticizes Maelgwn for drinking the wine of Sodom.
Yes.
Or like from the grape of Sodom, which I don't...
Soaked in the wine of the sodomitical grape.
Yeah. And sodomy at the time as well was referred to homosexual sex.
Yes.
Which seems to some people, including the famous Joffrey of Monmouth, that Maelgwn was, in this case, he would have been bi, because he also definitely liked women, which we'll come to in a second.
Yes. So Joffrey enhances that, but it does seem pretty clear that he's saying metaphorically that...
It's at least a suggestion, and it's not one that he makes towards any other king.
Yeah.
And it would have been a sin to Gildas, a very Christian person.
Yes.
And it seems like a criticism levied towards him, that it's another one of his sins.
Yes, okay, that makes sense. Oh, not that makes sense, as in, that makes sense for Gildas saying it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel that one. But like, the whole closeted thing, I mean, it's kind of a joke, but it's like, he literally in the same line, so he goes, Maelgwn, why art thou, as if soaked in the wine of the sodomitical grape, foolishly rolling in that black pool of thine offences? I mean, for starters, I don't know where he got black from. It's not supposed to be that color. Why dost thou willfully heap like a mountain upon thy kingly shoulders such a load of sins? Why are you so evil with your big, broad,
robust
kingly shoulders?
And he says he's so tall, he's blessed with height. Okay, Gildas. People in glass houses.
Exactly. So, okay. Yeah, that's a little bit of fun. So the next thing, the next big bad thing this guy does. Okay, yeah, I shall read from your notes again, from the Cambrian manuscript. Coveted his nephew's wife, so killed his wife, Sanan of Powys, and his nephew, unnamed, and then married his nephew's wife, possibly at her suggestion. Gildas says, Thou publicly married the widow, by whose deceit and suggestion such a heavy weight of offences was undergone. Brackets, freaky Maelgwn Gwynedd, Maelgwn Freakhead. I love how you can see yourself deteriorate over the course of these notes.
I never wrote any of this. You came up with this yourself. I'm just playing along.
Thank you. I've been working on my improv skills. Right, so he killed his wife, Sannan of Powers. Sannan of Powys. Is this the first time this pops up? She pops up in the story? Is she mentioned before?
In the manuscript called, it's a Decitio Brecaniog, as like about Brecon and about Brecaniog.
Yeah.
He mentions that one of Brecon's 50 children had a descendant named Sannan who was the wife of Maelgwn. And that's the only person who's referenced as that who isn't some sort of mythical fairy type creature. So she could be the wife here that it's referring to.
Okay, that makes sense. And his nephew, again, in general, his whole family, is this consistent? Him having a wife, him having a nephew?
We don't know any of the other people in his family.
Okay.
Their genealogies only record him and his father. They don't mention any brothers or anything, so we don't know who they were.
Okay. Killed his wife and his nephew, and then married his wife. So why does he... I believe he always talks about this, but why... other than that, so far we get the impression that he just likes doing stuff like this. Why, if he wants to marry his nephew's wife, why does he have to kill his wife and his nephew? He's the king. Can he just be like, okay, you're mine now?
It was according to the rules of the church. And Gildas even says that his own, Maelgwn's bards deceitfully convinced him that this meant that you were allowed, till death do us part.
Right.
To saying, if you really want to marry your nephew's wife, they're legally married in the eyes of God. That only ends when they die. And he's like, so if I kill them, that counts. And then they're like, yeah, I guess so. And Gildas says it's at her suggestion, which is an interesting little piece of drama.
It is. It's very Lady Macbeth.
It is quite Lady Macbeth. Maybe that's where they got it from. Lady Maelgwn.
Lady Maelgwn. So we got Maelgwn Freakhead because, he became a monk, but he just couldn't help himself. His nephew's wife was just too damn hot. So murder, marry. Next up, you've written, had 5 childs. Reen. Did I get that right?
Yeah.
Hell yeah. I'm smug as hell about that. Reen, his son and heir. Alcer, mentioned in Triads. Ooh, Deeg? Doeg? Doig?
Doig.
Doig, okay.
Pretty sure.
Got that Doig in him. Aenyon, and a daughter, Saint Irgain. Irgain?
I think it's Irgain.
Saint Irgain.
EU is normally I.
Saint Irgain. Prawley married Sannan of Powys. Prawley. So there's a few things. These guys pop up in a couple of places. Mainly, I think, in the Triads, right? So, do you want to tell us what the Triads are?
Sure. They're little short snippets of Welsh poetry, all listed in groups of 3s, theoretically to help the speaker remember the full story.
Okay.
So there's kind of a poetic way of writing down a bunch of blurbs. A lot of them are connected to nothing. We have no idea what they are, but several of them we do have the bigger stories too. Alcer, for example, is mentioned in a triad owning one of the 3 spirited steeds of Britain, and we don't know anything else about him.
Okay.
Reen's in a few as well.
Yes. So his son, Reen, I think I made a specific note on his bit because it was kind of funny. A lot of these triads are kind of funny, these Welsh triads. There's also lots of different versions of them.
Yeah, we need to rank them all someday.
Unfortunately, one of the most interesting versions, turns out, was from our old enemy, Iolo Morganwg.
Yep.
So, untrustworthy as per.
Irreparably damaged.
Yes. I think he added to this one, but this one was in earlier ones.
Because of knowing what we know from older sources of Iolo's work, there probably are several 3rd series triads that are authentic. We can't tell because it'd be like giving a box of paper and be like, some of this stuff is fake, some of this is real.
Or a box of dirt and rocks and treasures.
Yeah. So that means there's several triads that if he had access to, we can't use anymore.
Okay.
Because it's not trustworthy, which is...
So I made a couple notes on these. So his son, Reen, apparently could not get a single horse that fitted him because of his size. The way it's written is hard to tell. It just says... Yeah. So it's like 3 people in Britannia or whatever that have to have gold fetters to fit horses, which is...
Because they're too tall.
This is like the Guinness World Book of Records of its day. And arguably, I would say, about as useful, really.
Yeah, we know that he was tall. Maelgwn's called Maelgwn the Tall, and his son's called Reen the Tall also.
Okay, so that's... Yeah, he's probably extra tall. So he had to have fetters of gold around his legs, back, and under his knees to make a horse fit. I don't know, I just thought that was kind of amusing.
Yeah, it's attached to another story too, that there's men had to be shackled to their horses to stop them from fleeing the battle, but that's for another time.
Yes, it is. We should do one on the Triads. And then Ergain, let's just go through this rapid fire, because they're very short mentions, so I'm just going to ring them off back to back. You can have little reactions to each one if you like, but no pressure to. So,
all right.
These are all from various versions. So, Reen was one of the 3 fair princes on the island of Britain.
Wow.
Then the next one, this is like a full story. The 3 horses who carried the 3 horse burdens.
No way!
Basically, they are... There's a bunch of stuff happening here. Something called a battle fog is mentioned, so I guess that's also a cameo from that. But
yeah,
Ergain is the wife of one of these people, Elidir. They're just carrying stuff around on horses on some little quest, and Ergain is there. Reen being fettered to his horse.
Oh yeah.
The 3 lively steeds. Apparently, there's a grey horse who's very lively, and it belongs to Alcer, son of Maelgwn.
Wow. Oh yeah.
That's the last of them, basically. Okay, so that's our little Triad section. I don't know, maybe I'll put some funky music behind it. As far as I know, before we get to the conclusion of Maelgwn's story, that's most of it, right? There's no other big crimes.
No, not that I'm aware of.
Okay. I mean, what evidence... Is there much... We vaguely know that he's a warlord and campaigning, but I assume at this time... I mean, I made a joke earlier about... Oh, why don't they complain about the fact that he's doing that? But I guess in fairness, that is what every other king in the country is doing.
Yeah. Maelgwn, if he did hold some sort of higher authority in Wales, might have been a bit more widespread. But yeah, it was a very violent time.
So, yeah, in that case, we're reaching the end of Maelgwn's story and the end of Maelgwn. So, there's various bits and pieces to this part. I'll just start by reading your notes. It says, according to 1600's story... He hid in a church in Llanros from the Yellow Plague, I Vad Velen, but stupidly looked through a hole in door and died later in his bed, assumed to be EP, but was actually a rotting corpse. Easy mistake to make.
Yeah, that's basically that's the summary of the whole story.
Okay, let's break this down a bit. So, where is this appearing? Because we do have... his death noted down earlier, right? But it doesn't say it's because of the plague. In the annals, it just says Maelgwn dies.
Yeah, it does. In the well, in the annals text B, it mentions that he died in the court of Ross. So we say the long sleep in the court of Ross. Then it mentions the yellow plague of Lad Velen, but that date is difficult because that's the date of the plague of Justinian.
Okay.
And Maelgwn seems to have died of a disease that turns you like yellow. Plague of Justinian was the bubonic plague.
Okay.
So there's some difficulty. It's not at all certain that that's when Maelgwn died. It seems that it probably was close, and the dates have just been sort of pushed forwards, but it's probably very close to that day, which I think they give us 547, I think.
Yes, I was remembering that, but I didn't want to say it in case I was wrong. But... He dies in 547. Rest in peace, Maelgwn of Gwynedd. You would have loved drone strikes. So, Llanros, where's that? Is that still around? Because I feel like I'm making another Litchfield mistake. Yep, I am. Okay.
Is it called Llanros? There we go. Ross on Sea, and then Llanros is the name of the church I believe this story calls it.
Oh. Does Ross make sense as a place for him to be?
Yeah, Maelgwn theoretically held his court at a castle called Diganwy.
Okay.
Which is basically right next to it. It's on the hills above Llandudno.
Yes.
the hills above there is where Maelgwn's sort of traditional court is supposed to be, so it makes sense. The church is very close by.
Is there any physical evidence of any kind of fortification there, or?
Yes.
Oh.
Not a lot, but if I remember right, there was something.
Okay.
Don't remember what it was, though.
I'll give it a little Google.
I think it's called Bryn Maelgwn or Dinas Maelgwn.
Penny Dinas Hillfort.
Penny Dinas.
Wait, what would it be?
It feels sick.
What would it be?
Penadina.
That's close.
Penny Dinas.
You're being Penny Dinas. Pedant.
No, it's like one of those people used to call like Penny Fan.
What would it be? Penny Van.
Penavan.
Penny Fan.
There's no E. It's
Oh, it's
every time you went to think, you went E. You'd think that's a bit weird.
Okay, so description.
Can I get my umbrella?
But that's a different language.
Is umbrella close?
That's a different.
What I was saying, if you're saying and E are close enough, when you put it into English, it puts in perspective.
But if I didn't know English and I was learning English and I was like, could you pass me the umbrella?
Collier.
And you were like, ew, what the hell? What are you saying?
I would.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, I would.
So,
well, yeah, maybe if they were learning, but if they're hosting an England history podcast and they called it an umbrella,
fair enough.
You ain't escaping this one, Sonny Jim.
So, I found the website for, Penna Dinas. Did I get it right?
Nice.
Thank you.
Yes. Can hear the fear in your voice.
I know, I'm being degraded. So, description says...
You wouldn't sound afraid for that one.
They haven't mentioned Maelgwn here, but it says... A large fortified enclosure occupies a spur subsidiary peak jutting out from the bulk of the Great Orme, overlooking the modern resort of Llandudno. Part of the ramparts, blah, blah, blah. Nothing about Maelgwn there. I mean, is it linked to Maelgwn, or is it just it's in the right spot?
I think so. I don't really know, to be honest. Whatever you find is what you found.
Tradition
I don't know anything
makes
about
it the Illus of Maelgwn Gwynedd. Okay, this is falling apart. Right. Where am I? He's in a loss because apparently in a fortification there, he's hiding from the plague in a church. Which weird thing to do? Why would you hide? What? There's a flu going around.
A sanctuary.
Hide in a building.
An enclosed place as well. He locked himself in the church also, I think was the story. So no one else could go in there. But
he tries to look out through the keyhole and the plague gets him through the keyhole.
Yeah. Not a keyhole, just a hole in the door. There's like a hole in the door and he just peeks through and a plague gets him.
Okay.
It's like the Mask of the Red Death.
Mask of the Red Death?
Yeah, you never read that?
No? What's the Mask of the Red Death?
Yeah, you have to read it sometime. What, do you want me to explain the story for like 20 minutes? It's not going to get into the podcast. Or you don't want me to sit here?
Can I? I mean, can you say what it is?
It's a story by Edgar Allan Poe. Where a guy there's a plague going on, so he seals himself away in the castle.
Oh.
And he has these parties, and a guy who is infected gets in and he dies of the plague and something. It's really good. I'm only talking like this because I know this isn't going to get into the episode. You're going to be like, oh no, tell me about it, and then it's going to go into the cut content.
But people might pay for it.
Inevitably be deleted by you in a panic to try and free up space.
That happened to one part.
One part that happened to contain all of the cut content.
Long sleep in the court, that was Yellow Plague.
Here Heen Valgun and Eglwys Ross, the long sleep of Maelgwn in the court and the church of Ross.
Okay.
Okay.
So that brings us, that's pretty much everything we have on Maelgwn. He's died, his sons and daughters pop up elsewhere. Yeah, I wrote down a couple of finalizing questions. So,
alright.
My first one kind of is how real was he? So various sources, we have Gildas. Gildas is the only contemporary one, right? Does that mean his is the most trustworthy? So the stuff about, what does he describe? He describes from basically his unconversion to to marrying his nephew's wife, right?
Yeah.
Is that the most trustworthy stuff out of all of it?
Well, Gildas is the only primary source, and Maelgwn's very lucky for being one of 5 kings from about this time period that has an actual genuine primary source. So we can be confident at least that he existed.
Yeah.
Whether he did all those things, it seems that at the very least, Gildas thought that he'd done that.
Right.
And it seems like if he's writing a criticism for him and for people to read it, it would be quite strange for him to include things that were made up.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So it seems we can be fairly confident that if he was really intended to read this criticism, that these were things that happened. At least that Gildas had heard.
Okay. And there's also like the bits and pieces of tangible physical evidence, like the church in Conwy, is it? The fort in the right location in Llandudno.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, the other thing the idea of him being, the way Gildas describes him as being extra violent and sinful, does that make sense? Like, is the stuff he's doing in these stories, is that really any different from other kings? Like, does he really stand out for that?
Well, to be fair, Gildas criticized those 5 because they were all violent. But Maelgwn's one of familial murder is quite distinct.
Right.
Although the King Constantine, I think, murdered his nephews also, was another one.
These guys really do not like their nephews.
The one of Constantine, if I remember right, was very strange, where they sought refuge. I think it was his nephews. I think it was his brother's sons. They sought refuge from him in the church. And he disguised himself as a monk and then killed them at the altar.
Oh my god!
Which Gildas makes distinction of because it's like the holy place, and he killed them at the altar.
Wow, we should do an episode on him. So that's our Maelgwn, our first proper historical figure, from birth to death, from stealing cows and dirt and rocks to murdering people so he could sleep with their wives. What a glow up! Yes. Do you think we're ready to go to our question section?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. All right. Here we go. Here comes the questions.
I don't like this anymore. I don't think we're ready anymore. Mario falls down a hole. Bye-bye.
Let's go. Okay.
Rule of three.
All right, big boy.
I see you. What did you just call me?
Right, so questions. I want to preface this because I've realized that like we're slowly ironing out a release schedule for these, and I've realized that slowly heading towards basically the YouTube visuals for each episode come out as the audio for the next one comes out. Which means that if you're watching this on YouTube, listening to it on YouTube, as the vast majority of people are right now, then us going, hey, do you want to ask questions for the next episode?
It doesn't make sense.
It's slightly irrelevant because it's already out. So we will say what the next episode is at the end. So if you listen to this on a podcast, go ahead and ask. If you're listening on YouTube, then you'll be able to go to a podcast app right now and listen to the audio and ask a question, or just wait for it to come out on YouTube, whatever you like. Anyhow. We have a little variety of questions. You were right in your prophecy last time that we might not get that many on Maelgwn because nobody knows who he is. But we did get 2, so we got a few things. I think we'll start with the Maelgwn specific questions. Let's begin with Owen, who asks, do you guys think that Gildas's crowning of Maglacunus as the Insularis Draco indicates he was a high king of the Britons in the Britannia?
Well, what do you think?
What do I think?
Yeah.
Okay. This feels like a test. I felt like I'm in like a tutorial at university. I guess, well, we talked about it a little bit. In Saints' Lives, he has the various different, sometimes he's king of the Britons, sometimes he's king of stuff. But back in Gildas, in Insularis Draco, is that when he's calling him Dragon of the Island? Yeah. Is that what he calls him?
And a small.
So why would that necessarily indicate he's High King of the Brit? Just because dragons are the red dragons associated with them?
Yeah, I think that's what they're asking.
What do you think?
I would say definitely not. He seems to be referencing like those beasts of Revelation or whatever they're called. Like he calls out these lions, bears.
Oh yes,
dragons.
Oh my.
Also, it also works as a pun because he was very fond of puns. There's a ton in there. A dragon is also a Welsh word, which is like a war leader, which Maelgwn also would have been. So it works in 2 ways. It doesn't seem to have been a title. No one else has ever called that. No one else ever calls Maelgwn that.
Okay.
He does reference him having almost the highest authority in Britain, which is, I would say, is more of an indicator to him having some sort of higher kingship.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, so good question. Our next Maelgwn specific one is from someone we had before, Braden Hansen. So they ask, I know there are only 2 literary sources for this king, but is there archaeological evidence such as coins or remnants of his castle that we can observe today? Also, how common is it that we find archaeological evidence for kings of this time period? Well, the archaeological evidence we sort of covered a bit, at least with buildings, right?
Yeah, with a Pendinas and the Bryn Maelgwn or something like that, the hill up on above Llandudno.
Yes, and the church in...
Oh, yeah.
Is it Conwy?
Llandrillo and Ross. It's near Conwy. It's on the other side of the river.
Okay. Is there anything else?
Coin-wise, no. There's only one Welsh king has coins that we know of, if I'm aware of.
Okay. Who's that?
Hywel
I don't know why I asked, as if I'd be like, oh, that guy.
He did he was claimed to have codified the Welsh laws. That's a bit... Doesn't seem like he probably didn't actually himself. People later did, like in his name, but he also castrated his relatives and his nephews, I believe, or his cousin.
The nephews again. They had a hard time.
Familial, like...
Yeah. Okay, yes, and that's literally the only coin we have at all.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's just Hywel that I'm aware of, yeah.
So, we don't for Maelgwn, but that's not like... Oh, wow, we don't have that for him, because we don't for most.
Yeah, there's a few random archaeological evidences for other kings, but Maelgwn, there's not a huge amount. His is mostly just literary with Gildas and stuff.
Is it common for other kings, like he asks?
We have a few gravestones.
Oh.
And like later on, they are still standing today, some of the castles built by other Welsh kings and stuff.
Okay. So now we got a couple of general questions. Grand Theft Spice Trade says, Croeso, that means welcome, right?
Yeah. Oh, wait. Yeah, as in like... Wait, why are they saying welcome?
I'm not sure. Maybe just like welcome to
my question.
To the realm of... I was going to say to the realm of podcasters. Welcome to my question.
My question welcomes you.
That's brilliant. I'm going to start introducing... Every time I'm in a conversation now, I'm going to be like, welcome to my sentence.
Feel bad. It's like roasting him for no reason.
They did say Croeso and then a little smiley face. It is nice.
What was it under? What was the post?
It was on the Spotify, just on one of the latest podcasts.
Were they just saying like welcome to the world? Because we just made it.
I guess so, yeah.
Well, that's nice of you. Thank you. So. I appreciate for misinterpreting it as you welcoming us to the next sentence.
Yeah.
Although, I think we should all start doing that.
Welcome. Would you...
I beseech my question. Fog this.
Would you recommend...
Sorry.
If we ever get a bad question, I'm going to call that.
Computer, fog.
Listeners, fog this man. Would you recommend any particular regions of Wales for interesting archaeological work? I'm a uni student, so I'm looking for interesting places to do field work, and I love Welsh history.
I think archaeology is really not my field. Sorry, I wish I could give like a really cool recommendation, but yeah, sorry. You'd have to look at all those like the trusts around Wales.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, I feel bad enough, I'm going to do a quick Google of... I did think, you should Google it, but then I realized that sounds meaner than anything else, so I was like, why don't you Google it?
Can I go pee while you're doing that? Because I've been holding it for ages and I'm about to explode.
Yes.
Okay,
so Cam has gone off to use the little boy's room. But, what we call Great Spice Trade. I've just Googled it, which I'm sure you've done as well. But just in case, there's Archaeology Wales, which they have a page on excavation, and it looks like there's places all over Southwest Wales, Southeast Wales, North Wales, Powys. They've listed Langhorne School, Pendinas, in Aberystwyth, a place in Gower, a place in Ceredigion. It seems like there is stuff all over. I don't really know how joining digs and things like, or doing field work works. I mean, you definitely know more than us. I would love Spice Trade if you would get back in touch with us and tell us about the stuff you're doing, because I think that's really cool. And if you dig anything up interesting, maybe go to Snowdon and look for Arthur, because nobody's found him yet. So I'm sure there's no legal restrictions on that. You can probably just get a pickaxe and just start digging. But Yeah. Cam's back.
Hello.
I didn't tell him to do anything illegal. So, next question. Hesperornis.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is a joke. I simultaneously want and don't want to believe it's real.
Yeah.
This is on our Wikipedia's King Doesn't Exist video.
Yeah.
They said,
Yeah.
my wife and I were looking for a name for our baby, and they just moved to the top of the list.
As it should. If you don't name your offspring after the latest topic our podcast was on, then what else is there? What else is there in life?
And you have to use the full podcast title. So Ananthi is alright, maybe a middle name, but your first name should be Wikipedia's -king -doesn't -exist.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, Hesperornis. And with that, that's all the questions we have. So our next episode is going to be on a bit of prehistory, which is something I'm very interested in and know little about.
Before history even happened, we're talking about the Big Bang.
We're covering all of the Big Bang up to the first written word.
It's a 22-hour long podcast.
But we're talking about Celtic tribes in Wales in prehistory, which is very exciting. Do you have any vague teaser about that?
No, I don't think so.
All right. So you can leave questions for that here. Or if you're watching the video version of this on YouTube, then that episode will be out right now.
Yeah, too late.
In which case you can go and listen to it. It is too late.
Too late.
You should have been faster.
You
should have been faster.
If you're quicker, you could answer the question, and we could have discussed your username and then answered your question in the last 4 seconds.
And then do you know what? Yeah. Maybe your parents then would actually like you. But as it is, you're just too damn slow.
Yeah. Call you Dr. Slowness for a reason. Dr.
Slowness fired from the University of Speed. It's a question of why he was even hired in the first place. And that's the end of the question section. Right, so welcome to the end of the podcast. So before we go, as usual, first plugs for this. So don't switch off, because if you like this, there's more stuff, so don't come back. On YouTube, you'll be able to go and watch the visual for the previous episode. That's the most recent one. That's Mad Dogs Cambria. So the visuals for the King Arthur episode will be there. Then on Instagram, we're Mad Dog Pod, MADDOGPOD, and you'll hear at the very end of this, anyone who follows us on there, we do a shout out. And then Twitter, Mad Dogs Pod, MADDOGSPOD. And then, so our personal stuff. Do you want to go first with your luscious, decadent little channel?
You could go first.
No, you had to talk to let you go.
You can go first, it's okay.
No, I'm good.
Alright, you can find Patrick over at Never Is Funny. All one word, all lowercase. Just type that into anything, it'll take you straight there, and if it doesn't, destroy whatever you typed it into, because it's not working.
Yes, that's true. That's a very good job. I talked to various content creators, mostly comedians. There's a couple episodes with Cam you can go listen to if you haven't already. They're fun, funny. Starting a new series soon. Cam, I'll describe your one if you like. You're over on YouTube at Cambrian Chronicles. And what do you do over there?
Like Welsh history stuff. There's a few things like that on there.
Your newest one, most recent one, is the shark video, which I'm a big fan of. Yeah,
it's a video I describe a shark per each scale I count, and then it's like a 62-hour video, and it's really boring.
To be fair, if you did a 62-hour video essay on shark scales, I'd eat that up. But yeah, it's a video about a man fighting a shark with a sword. It's very good. You guys should go check it out.
Thank you.
That's pretty much all the plugs we have.
I got some more plugs over here. I don't want to say. next to my extension. Next to my extension cord.
Hello?
see like hunched over.
What do you mean? Are you like ready to start? What?
When I was laughing to myself, you were like this.
I was like, what? I don't. Like, are we gonna record we're gonna do the Maelgwn episode now? Like, I started the call and I left you here. Who have you been talking to? You're alright. If you've been talking to yourself the whole time, I can use that and I can like go back and put my own voice in. You're smoking a cigarette. Indoors? Okay, well I'll go back in and edit my voice in. I assume I mean, you mentioned before that hallucination. Did you hallucinate me talking again? Was that what it was? Okay. Well, that's okay. I do think you should talk to someone about that. Not yourself. But we'll see you next time. And Hoil Var, everyone. Do you want to say it as well? Are you able to talk yet? Okay. Hoil Var. Dave's Gate.
Yeah.
No.
Dave's Gate.
We have Dave 3 SGTE.
SKGA.
Washi Short Shot.
Short Shot.
Owen R999.
R999.
Sow's Ear Soup.
Sow's Ear Soup.
That, I really don't like the visual image of that.
I really don't like the visual image of that.
Nor do I like the next one, which is Holy Juice.
This Holy Juice.
Nukpang. Brianna 1993. NU2.ioxNNIS.
I can't keep that in my brain.
John.
It's like that Doctor Who episode. Is on a bus.
Midnight. It's a good one. John Bourne Jorvie.
John Pork.
Which is it says they're actually underneath as the Patrick brothers, so thanks guys. Sage
shared account.
Sage of Florence 333. Bedru.romantica. Emir 42. Washi Short Shot again. Okay, you tricked me into reading your name twice, but you do that again, there are going to be serious consequences. That is fraudulent. And the last one is Cosmonaut _. Alright.
10,000 followers and all of them are Washi Short Shot.
Everyone is Washi Short Shot.